All right, y'all. We are live for our January YouTube Live. Woo!
Yay.
Friday Night Live.
Yes, Friday Night Live. So, good evening, everyone. My name is Dr. Tiara Bland. I am a co founder and chief of staff for the Black School Psychologist Network, and I have my lovely co hosts.
Hi, everyone. I'm Dr. Aline Milfort, also a co-founder of BSPN and also the director of marketing. I'm excited to be here.
Yes. And so we will get to our guest speakers in a second. We have two amazing school psychologists tonight for our topic on living our best lives, self-care for Black school psychologists. So for any new viewers that are tuning in tonight, just a quick spill about the Black School Psychologist Network. So simply, our vision is to support and elevate and advance the work of Black school psychologists. And towards the end of the live, we have some exciting summit announcements. So stay tuned for that. Aline, anything else before we jump right in?
No, let's do it. I'm excited to have our guest tonight, so ready to learn.
All right. So before we dive into all our questions, we'll have our guest speakers take a moment to introduce themselves to our viewers.
All right. So my name is Dr. Kamio Jones. I am in my fourth year of being a school psychologist. I'm in California. I've been at a charter school system, K through 8, for my first 3 years. And now I am currently working for Elk Grove Unified School District. And as young as kindergarten all the way up to 12th grade, I'm at a bunch of different sites, working with different populations every day.
Nice. And Maya?
I am Maya Evans. Everyone on here is doctor, soon to be in several years, but we're working on it. But I am a nationally certified school psychologist. I got my master's from Teachers College in Columbia. And this is my fourth year being a school psychologist. I was previously in Broward County Public Schools and now am working for South Florida in private practice, shadowing doctor in school psychology, as well as doing some contract work for schools. And in addition to that, because I think it's important to mention for wellness, I am also a personal trainer, group fitness instructor, all things fitness, love that as well. So a very holistic approach to health and importance of both mental and physical health.
Nice.
I'm loving it.
Yeah, so thank you, Kamio and Maya, for introducing yourselves. So, Aileen, you want me to take the next question, or you want me to go ahead?
Yeah,
You want to? Okay.
I'll take the next one.
Okay, cool. All right, so first question of tonight is, can you share your journey and maybe briefly your experiences as a Black school psychologist and how self-care has played a role in your professional life?
Yeah, you said briefly, so let's try to go brief. I was thinking about this and I was like, honestly, my journey started as a Black school psychologist, going to school to heal my inner child. I'm not gonna lie to y'all. Like I went in with a lot of mental health concerns and I felt like I had spent years trying to figure out how to deal with them. And I was just like, you know what, I'll just have to do it myself. And so really went into school with that kind of mindset, like, let me help myself first. And then, so the first year of grad school for me was very, very challenging because it was like I was doing a lot of that inner work and applying everything I was learning to myself. And I would say the last semester of my master's program was really when I was like, okay, now I'm ready to really get out there and help people and help these kids. And so you go into, as a new, fresh out of school psychologist, and you hear about it. Okay, there's only 7% of us, but you go into the field oh, there's actually really only 7% of us in the field. And I would say the first year was COVID year for me. So it's kind of okay, I'm chilling. Then the second year was the reintegration back into school. I was okay, maybe they just need a little bit of time for everyone to come back. And then third year was really when I was okay, so this is what it's like. And there was a lot of I realized I found myself losing myself. Like when I walk into a room, it was very challenging within the systems, within your coworkers. But for the kids, they're extremely excited to see someone that looks like them. So it's like this conflict of like, I really am feeling uncomfortable around these adults, and they're really questioning. I'm young, I'm fresh out of school, just a couple of years. And so there's a lot more questioning, even if it's not questioning, right? Like just even like microaggressions, things like that you have to deal with. And within the public school system, especially, and working for a district, I would say it's been a lot more empowering, leaving that, and that self-care came in, that I did need to leave the in-person school district for my own self-care. And that's not to say like everyone go quit your job tomorrow, but for me, like it just did. That's what I had to do. I found myself losing the passion, which I love being a school psychologist, so that didn't make sense. And I found myself like not even wanting kids to come my door when previously it was open door policy, just things that I had to be aware of as a mental provider and do something about. Tried all the self-care things, tried everything that I'm preaching about, and just realized that that change of environment was what I truly needed, and taking that step to do so. And so now finding my way in contract work, doing presentations and things like that have really been what I enjoy being a school psychologist.
And then for me, I mean, I went to a private college for grad school. For undergrad, I went to CSU Long Beach, super diverse school. And then, went into starting to learn about the career of school psychology. In my cohort, there was only 3, including me, that were African American. And there were a few out of those 3, I would say that I was probably the one that may have grew up in a more lower income, I guess, household than the others. And so sometimes it was still hard to relate to them, even though, we may look the same on the outside. And so everyone else, they were white, they were, very high income families, things like that. So trying to navigate that was already a difficulty. And kind of like you said, Maya, I was instantly put into shock going into like field work and, stuff like that, realizing that there wasn't a lot of us out there. I did say my first 3 years I was at a charter school. It was in a very rural community, very tiny little town. Majority of our kids were white. Some were Mexican, being that we had a lot of immigrant families in that area. But as far as the workers go, I was probably the only one of color, besides our janitors, maybe. And so that was really weird. My first year, it's same like you. I started in the COVID year. So getting that interaction and trying to make myself known was super hard. And I almost felt like I was hiding behind the computer, and like, parents didn't really know me because everything was on Zoom. So once things started to open back up and the kids were coming back, I had to really find myself as not only a school psychologist, but of a psych of color. So it was hard. That school had a lot of parents who had that money to bring in those advocates and those lawyers. Being that I was young and fresh out, that was already kind of working against me of like, you don't know what you're talking about. You just graduated. And then sometimes, of course I'm assuming, but sometimes I did feel like, maybe they aren't trusting me because I don't look like them. But I think the biggest thing for me is those few kids that did look like me on that campus, they loved having me there. I think the first time I realized like, I needed to be at that school was when a little girl told her mom, her hair looks like mine. She was like, it's curly like mine. And I was like, it is. And I love your hair. And, I struggled when I first was finding a job because I really did want to work in a environment where kids, look like me and they needed me and things like that. So when I was, got hired at this other school, I looked at the demographics online and I was like, man, I don't know how this is going to work. But there's that small population of kids that needed me there. And so I'm glad I got to do the work I did there. Obviously, now where I'm at, it's way more diverse when it comes to the students, especially. And I think even just within the school psychs that we have in Outgrove, we are super diverse. So now it's kind of cool to kind of like find my people in this career. But throughout all that, kind of like Maya said too, I struggled with, especially graduating. I didn't know where I belonged, what my purpose was, because I was a student forever. I was like, now what? Now what do I do? Like, who am I? And that started making trauma come up from childhood. And I was like, oh my gosh, like I have to deal with this because, you know, God forbid a kid comes in with the same trauma I had as a child and I can't deal with it because it's triggering me. So that kind of forced me to say, hey, you need to take care of you. And it pushed me actually to go to therapy because, you know, I can't preach to these kids that they have to come see me and receive services if I can't even go and do it myself.
So true. So true.
No, that's so both of you guys touched on a lot of things that I believe that most of us or all of us can relate to. It's just the my grad school experience. So Tiara and I went to similar grad school, and like you said, Dr. Jones, literally, I grew up in an environment where I grew up in the hood, right? If we want to be real, right? And so my counterparts were just like, you know, their experience, they had the resources from beyond before grad school. And I'm first generation, my family are immigrants, I'm Haitian, you know, and I'm the one that's kind of like being that example for my family on higher education, right? And so having to deal with that. And then you mentioned, you know, you were a student forever. I grieved after graduation. I grieved the identity of a graduate student because I carried it with pride. I was like, man, I was a grad student for like 6 years. You know? And now I'm a school psychologist and people are calling me doctor. And it was so hard to literally remove myself from that. I was like grieving. And sometimes when I would see graduate students on Twitter or social media talking about this and that, I was low key a little jealous, you know? I was like, man, this was my life. And now I'm like, I have to adult and actually practice, right? And so these are some of the things that I love that we're talking about tonight, because a lot of people don't say this because it's like, man, if I say this, like, am I a good school psychologist? Can I talk about self-care, right? Because I'm struggling in this moment. So it's really good that we're validating some people and normalizing experiences right now. So we're going to jump into the next question that says, in a profession where there might be a strong focus, and you know we have a strong focus on supporting others, how do you maintain a balance between caring for yourself and supporting the needs of students and colleagues?
I can say that I didn't at one point, which I'm sure most of us probably didn't. But this school year, being that I did start in a new district, that was my ultimate goal, was to separate work from home.
Yep.
I knew I needed that because I before had my email on my phone. We had an app where parents could contact us. That was on my phone. So if I got notifications about kiddos, like I was responding. While at home, I could be in bed, lights off, and I get this notification and I'm responding. And it's like, it would take a toll on me because especially if it was a crisis that someone, you know, a parent was notifying me about, I'm now anxious all night, can't go to sleep because I'm like, oh my God, like I have to deal with this tomorrow, or I'm worried about the kid going through the rest of the night. And so when I started here, that was my first thing, was like, I'm taking that all off my phone. It was scary. I'm now used to it and I love that I did that for myself. But the first month or two, my anxiety levels like were through the roof because I was always like, oh my God, what if I got an important email when I left work and now I'm not going to know what's going on when I get to work at the next day. Like that anticipation was like killing me for the first couple months. But my biggest thing was setting those boundaries. It kind of gave me a fresh start. So I was able to set it from the gate. My coworkers now know that, hey, at this time, you're not going to be able to reach me.
Yep.
There's a few of them who have my number if it's like the absolute worst emergency in the world, but they all respect that. They'll text me sometimes after hours and they'll say, hey, you don't have to respond to me. I'm just letting you know. And I'm like, cool, I'm not going to respond then. I'm glad they're respecting it. That is really hard, but I think that comes with myself too, and respecting my own boundaries, because I've had some of my coworkers who, they've only known me so many months, but they've said, I like that you set your boundaries where they are. We know what you're willing to do and what you're not going to do for us, and we're not going to step over them because they feel like I put my foot down. And I did not do that at the other school. And I loved the workers there. It wasn't their fault at all, but I just wanted to help everybody. The problem is when you do that, you are taking from your own bucket, and my bucket was getting too low. So I noticed that just even productivity with like writing reports, things like that, they're just getting done quicker because I have the energy to actually give to that stuff. So
yeah, that's so good. You just remind me, before you go, Maya, it just reminded me, like when I was in early career, I used to have Outlook on my phone. I would be constantly checking. And after a while, I was like, why do I do this to myself? Like, why? And then one school year, I just said, enough is enough. Like, I'm going to set some hard boundaries. And sometimes it's hard because you're like, I want to be there for everybody. But once I took the Outlook, Gmail off my phone, it was just like, wow, like my school eventually, like I said, they knew that after 4 p.m., I am not responding. And even now, I'm like transitioning to being a professor, my students always laugh at me because I'm like, listen, you can email me on the weekends, but you are not getting a response until Monday. And you're not going to get an email from me past probably 4 o'clock on the weekdays. Like, it's so important, like at school sites, we're setting those boundaries. Like, yes, it's for other people, but it's for ourselves too. Like you were saying, Kamio, like we can't, like we're pouring so much of ourselves already as a school site to others, but we got to also refuel ourselves as well, which is so key. So whoever's listening, if you have your Outlook or Gmail on your phone tonight, this weekend, please take it off. Delete the apps. Like, do it for your own sanity, okay?
I had it off, but since now being back into doctorate, and they're like, you see my email? And I'm just like, I don't have the app on my phone, but I'm guilty right now. I do have it on there. So everything that Dr. Jones just said about having to set those boundaries, I think for me, I mean, it was right off the gate, and going to internship in Baltimore City. Loved it. Still talk about it to this day. I loved being in Baltimore City. But the thing that hit me hardest being in Baltimore City was wanting, like you said, wanting to help everyone, all those kids. And luckily I was at one school to where I got to know all those kids. And then I found myself wanting to seek out kids because this is a school where, mental health, they're not really about it. I needed to get into their spaces. And so I found myself wanting to help kids that did not want to be helped. And I thought, okay, maybe some motivational interviewing. No, they weren't having it. So it was more like for my own self-care and me getting so frustrated and invested in these kids that were not ready to seek help, since it's a little bit more beyond testing. And there's a lot of that tiered support there. I had to, for my own self-care, like, when they're ready, you planted the seed, right? You let them know you're here. I was going to like basketball games. I'm going to the student events, pep rallies, and let them know you're there. But you can't drag them into your office, and you can't force the mom to want to get support for the kid. It's just like, you have to let them know and then leave it out there for them and empower them with that, because I was really taking it personally that these students and kids and parents did not want services and that support that I felt like they needed, and really having to take a step back from that and focus on the ones that were on my caseload and helping them in the best way that I could until those other people were ready. So setting that boundary.
Good.
No, this is so good. I just wanted to add something in before we go to our next question. As you all were talking, I think about prioritizing, right? Or that balance. It's like going
Mhm.
into the field, especially if you're fresh out. It's realizing that self-care starts with asking yourself that question of, what is the motive of you overextending yourself, right? Is it to
Yep.
prove yourself that you're worthy of this position? Or is it like, yeah, I just naturally like my job and I want to take extra work home, right? And if it's the former of like, yeah, I just need to prove that I'm meant to be here, right? That's when we burn out quickly, because us being in that space is enough, right? Like we are the expert. And that's something I constantly have to tell myself, being in this new environment, right? Of this district I'm in. It's like, I have the training, I have the experience, I have the
Yep.
knowledge, right? I know what I'm doing. I don't have to prove myself and make my report more detailed than it needs to be, right? Or being doing extra observations or doing whatever the case may be, because I'm enough, right? And also understanding that, like Maya said, you wanted to save everyone, right? Like that was me. Like I was taking it personal, like I need to save this whole school. Like, you know,
I think we all going with that.
right? You know, these kids look like me. Like I
Yes.
wanted the school
Maybe they're only one
psychologist,
of them.
right? And so it's like, man, I'm put my cape on, let's do this. But literally, you know, you're burning out more quickly. So I love how this conversation is going tonight, because I feel so validated right now, y'all.
I would say for me, my reason was the proving myself thing.
Yeah.
I think that, especially same like you, my family, I was the first one to actually go. You know, I had family members that attempted college and then were like, nah, this isn't for me. But I was the first one to like go and get all these degrees. So when I got out, I was like, I have to show people that like all the hard work I put in.
Right.
And for me, that was kind of what it was. And because of COVID, I really thought I had to just do so much, because I was like, I'm not even seeing half of these kids in person, that I have to just overextend myself and be there all the time, because how else am I going to support them? And I think, especially if you know, anyone who was working during that time, I feel like we probably all were doing that because we felt like, I don't know what else to do. Like, so I'm just going to do everything to try to do, you know, to help as much as I can. And, but like you said, if I would have continued doing that, I'm so early on, it would have sucked because I would have burnt out that quick.
Yeah, that's so true. Aline, can you see the chat on YouTube by any chance?
I can't. I'm like trying to, y'all. Like, listen, I'm trying to multitask right now, and it's not working for me. But let me try again.
Yeah, I was trying to see what the chat was saying real quick, because this has like been so good so far, and I was wondering if anyone had any comments or questions. But the chat feature's not working on my end either, so I don't know what's going on with YouTube tonight.
No,
I have it up on my phone, but I don't know if you guys see something different if you're like logged in or something.
No, I see it. Oh, we're good. There's nothing in chat right now, but yeah.
Okay, y'all real quiet tonight.
Wake up.
There's people on there.
Let's do some jumping jacks real quick. Y'all ready?
Right, because like I know people watching, because I can see too. Yeah.
See people watching.
All right, we'll come back. Maybe we'll get to some questions. Y'all put some comments in the chat, club chat. I don't know. Yeah, I don't know if Byron or some of our board members are on, but get the chat live. All right, so we'll get back to our conversation because this is going so good. Aline, was I next? I don't remember. We were having such a good conversation.
We went deep tonight. Like I feel like I'm really in the couch, y'all.
All right, so. Oh, I really love this question because I'm sure there are some viewers with some school psychs, some grad students, some faculty that are like, I am struggling with self-care. I don't know where to start. I don't know what that looks like. So the question is, how important is it for Black school psychologists to prioritize self-care, especially considering the demands of our job and the potential impact that has on our mental well-being? So anything you would like to share with our viewers, that would be great.
Yes, how important is it? It's so important. It's so important because we've all talked about, even just in our first year, how we experienced burnout. People don't experience that until you're 20, whatever. But it's like we going right in, and I described it this way to one of my friends the other day. So I have this role of as personal trainer as well. And walking into a room as a Black personal trainer versus walking into the room as a Black school psychologist. And I said, as a Black personal trainer, there's a lot of us out there. We're known for being extremely fit. I'm confident. I know I'm like the strongest looking person. I know it's funny because you're intimidating, but in a good way. Like, y'all know you're about to get a great workout. I walk into the room as a Black school psychologist, and it's like it's the exact opposite. Is I want to shrink myself into as small as I can because I don't want to be intimidating. But at the same time, I have to work extra hard to prove that I deserve to be in that room. And so it's extremely important that you do extra to take care of yourself, especially in our field where we're taking care of others. And so for me, and everyone's different, but for me, that was making sure that I include workouts and fitness activities within my routine, because anytime I'm not doing that, I have 3 days. Y'all catch me on day 4 without having gotten a workout, because I'm like, I am a completely different person. And there have been several times that I have gone that long because I'm so deep into work and trying to help other people. But then on that day 4, I sit back and I'm like, what is going on today? And I'm like, I haven't worked out. I haven't worked out in 4 days. So it's almost to the T. It's kind of weird, but it's 4. That's my max. And so I know that for me, like, that's something I need to include. But in order to do that, sometimes I've had to change what those workouts look like. Like, if I could and had time, I would be pumping iron in the gym for several hours every day, but I've had to readjust what that looks like.
She's not lying, y'all.
I have had to readjust what that looks like for me on those busy times, when they're getting towards midterm, especially now. The second half of the year is always a lot of things pick up as a school psych. And so making sure that I take the time, I have to be a little bit more organized in when I'm going to get a workout in. And it's just things that you don't want to do, because you just want to have that free time to do it when you want it. But as a school psych, and it really in any profession that requires you to help take care of others, is you have to be a little bit extra prioritizing your self-care and things that you do for yourself. For me, fitness is one. And then another one, I like to just go outside in nature. So that's another thing. And I try to kind of combine it with social, because that's another thing that we gotta try to prioritize in there too. But if I can go out with a friend, we're going rollerblading, we're going to anything that can kind of combine those self-care activities is even better. But make sure for me, it's fitness, outside in nature, and then social.
Yeah, that's good.
But I mean, you've already said that it's important. But I think that obviously for anyone working in the mental health field or education in general, it's going to be important. But I think it's even more important when you are not just Black, but anyone who's of color, really, because we're not only dealing with the demands of the job, but like we said at the beginning, there's all these other little things that could happen that take a toll on your mental health, and we may not even think about that it is doing that to us. I know for me, my biggest thing, and if there's any of my friends watching, they know I vent about it a lot on my social media. But when I got the title doctor, sometimes I'm in these meetings and I have people who will, I feel like, purposefully forget that I said Dr. Jones at the beginning of the meeting, and they'll constantly keep calling me just Kamio or just Miss Jones. And I don't correct them because I'm just not that person that does that. But I've had instances where people in the room will correct them for me, and then I get uncomfortable. And it, like, in the moment, I'm always like, oh, it's whatever. But then afterwards, it's like, I obviously have to go somewhere and vent, and I'm venting because it bothered me.
Yeah.
And I make it lighthearted and funny when I'm on social media talking about it, but like deep down, I'm like, no, that actually really does make me mad. And I obviously can't respond in anger in the meeting, but it's like that takes a toll when it's something that happens more often than not, unfortunately. And I think, like I said, that there was a while I was struggling with that, like, identity, and that, maybe I didn't deserve to have this title. So when that happens, it just like makes that worse for me sometimes. And so, like you said, like it's very important for me to either just take time to myself, even if it is just venting. Sometimes that's enough for me to just vent to someone, whether they get it or they don't. I just need to like yell at someone else about it because I knew I couldn't do it in the moment. And I think I'm a big person of that, especially when it comes to like anger built up. The gym is the place where I let it all out because I'll pick up the heaviest weight and feel like the strongest person. And so I'm the same way when I don't get those times in to be physical, or mostly it's strength. Like it's not even just the physical part of it. I need to feel strong. It makes me feel better. And when I can't get that in, yeah, I'm not the kindest person to be around sometimes. But I notice it in myself. And so that's, I obviously know now, like, that's an important thing for me. I have to make time for that. And, even like I said earlier, if that means that those boundaries are set where like, it's 4 o'clock, I got to go because I got to get to the gym. To some people, if I were to say that, they might be like, can't you just wait till 4:30 or can't you just, and I'm like, no, I need to get there. I need to get my hour in or whatever it is, because if I don't, the person that I become is not the best version of myself. So yeah, it's very important.
That is so true. I'm the same. If I don't work out a certain amount of days, and I'm like, something's off.
Yeah.
Like something feels weird. And then I'm like, oh, I ain't work out.
That's really
and
good.
look,
Go ahead.
and Aline, looks like we have a question in the chat. Do you want me to read it?
Yeah, we can have a question from the chat.
Okay. That's good. We do have people actually tuning in. Byron said, hey, y'all. Our amazing volunteer lead, Stacia, put a question in the chat and she said, hey, y'all. But then it says, to what extent do you think the nature of being a graduate student contribute to how you prioritize, or didn't prioritize self-care during your first year?
I did not prioritize self-care.
Yeah, I will say that.
I definitely didn't. I was coming from being a track athlete in undergrad, where I was told when, where, and how to work out. And when I got to, so I was dealing with that transition as well as first year in this space where I was the only Black graduate student in school psychology at my school. So it was just a lot of different transitions in identity that really caused that like shutdown, and I didn't know what to do. The only physical activity I got was walking a couple blocks to McDonald's to get some food there. I talk about that on my page all the time. I had an addiction to McDonald's in my first year of grad school. So that led to a negative for my first year of grad school. What I'm doing now in my first year of doctorate in clinical psychology is making sure I literally have on my calendar that hour scheduled to work out, and being more intentional about those things, I think is really the best way. Not leaving up to chance, I'll get it done. And taking that break, because you want to get that essay done and you want to get all these things done, but it's like, one, making sure you're not waiting till last minute to get that essay done, but taking that hour for yourself, because it's only going to come back cognitively refreshed and ready to go. And usually you'll have that mental block beforehand. At least I know I do when I haven't gotten that physical exertion.
Yeah, I would say in grad school, I think mostly, if anything, I wouldn't even say, because I know sometimes people think self-care is just the mental piece, but it's definitely just physical. It's even just internally when it comes to like what you're eating and putting into your body. And I, like you said, with the McDonald's, like the way I was snacking and eating in grad school was ridiculous. Like thinking back to that, and it was just hard to get out of that pattern of, all of our classes were super late. So, I'm getting home super late, and then it's like, now I'm doing homework super late and I'm up. So why not eat? Like, and I would lose track of like, now I just ate a whole bag of chips because I'm typing the essay and just, reaching for the chips at the same time. And I think that I did not prioritize that. I would go to the gym, but it wasn't a mandated thing for me. Like I was just,
Right.
if I had time, I'd be like, oh, this will be fun. I'll go. And I didn't, I didn't really know what I was doing in the gym probably either. I was just going because I thought I was supposed to be going.
Mm-hmm.
But I know going into my first year, and again, like it sucks that it was during COVID because it nothing was open. So I really couldn't try to make a change and go to the gym if I wanted to. So I definitely had to start getting really creative, I would say, going into my first year to prioritize what that's taking care of me look like.
Yeah.
Because I was very tempted to not do anything. But I had to start realizing, like, obviously a lot of places started doing like virtual classes and things like that. But it took me a while to kind of make that transition and realize, like, you can't be this way forever because eventually, I'm going to be tired every day at work. I'm going to be like, all these things are going to start piling up and affecting me. So
That's good. That's good. All right. So we are going to jump to the next question, which kind of correlates actually from what we talked about. But what advice do you have for Black individuals entering the field of school psychology regarding the importance of self-care and maintaining a healthy work-life balance?
I think my number one thing now would be to keep yourself organized. Maya just mentioned that she really blocks off time. And that's really important. Like I am a huge person when it comes to planning. I think I talk to Tiara all the time. Like, when we hang out, it's an instant. I'm like, I'm putting it on my calendar right now. Because if it's not there, it's not going to happen.
It doesn't exist.
Yeah, it just doesn't exist if it's not on a calendar somewhere, whether it's my phone, my actual planner, or just, somewhere else that I have it. And I think that would be like my biggest advice is to keep yourself organized some way, somehow, whatever works for you. It's everyone, chooses their ways of, keeping stuff like that. But that's really the only way that I was able to maintain. Um, there's so many apps out there now.
Oh yeah.
If you are somebody who's like, yeah, I want to eat cleaner, healthier, whatever it is, they have apps for that to keep track of things like that. I know for me, that was the biggest thing. I just am not someone who can work off of it just being me telling myself to do it. Like it has to be put somewhere else for me. So I'm looking at it and saying, no, you said you were going to do this on this day. And so that's what needs to happen. Because I notice when I don't have that structure, I will just allow myself to do things that, and whether I'm just resting all day, which is fine to do every now and then, but sometimes it'll become a pattern where like I'm just, the motivation disappears, and then it does trickle over into my job. I've noticed I'll come to work and I'm like, I don't even feel like doing anything because I've been doing nothing the past few days at home. And, so just really making myself actually get up and do whatever that is that makes me happy. It does, really doesn't necessarily have to be working out like we've all been talking about, but something that makes you happy and brings you joy that's separate from work. I know some people are like, well, I like doing research. And I'm like, I get it. It's kind of tied to your profession. Like find a different hobby or, read a different kind of book that's not, educational, just to give yourself that, that joy that's different from work.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So exactly what Dr. Jones just said on that ending is what I was going to say about having a passion outside of being a school psychologist does not make you a bad school psychologist. And it really can tap into that creativity, something that doesn't require all of that mental exhaustion and really is like exciting for you to do, tapping into that creative side. So for me, yes, it's also fitness, but I also enjoy dance and I also enjoy doing different things with art. And so having something that is a little bit more of that mental expression, but in a creative way that doesn't need to be so rigid. And I feel like that's really helped me as a form of self-care and developing that creative side.
Yes, I wanted to add a little bit to that, as well as entering the field is understanding that being okay with saying no on certain
Yep.
things, and understanding that outside of our profession, right? Like there's going to be seasons we have to be flexible and saying like my personal life, I have some important things happening, like whatever you're experiencing, family goals, moving, like you're going to have to prioritize sometimes personal things over the profession and being okay with that. And that's also work life, right? Is like, okay, right now, home is more important to me. I'm still going to do my job, but I'm not going to overextend myself because this time in my life, this is more important to me.
Yeah.
So being flexible with that, saying no, right? And going back to what is my motive of my response? Is it to prove myself or I just want to do it? So
that's good. What is my motive behind my response?
Yeah.
Experiences really brought some lessons for me this year. It's like I had to say no, and moments where they were not intentional. It's like more of I wanted to prove myself, or I just new environment. I'm here. I'm a school psychologist, right?
Yeah.
But prioritizing my personal life, because like you said, Dr. Jones, if you don't do anything in your personal life, it's gonna bleed into your profession. Like, so.
Yeah, that's so true. We actually got another question in the chat, which I'll get to in a second. But it also, like what we're talking about, also kind of leads to another question that we had a little bit later, but just like continuing about that advice. So we're like giving advice for those that are coming into the field, but we have a lot of viewers that are school psychologists and grad students now. And I guess like while we're on this topic, like what is some advice we could give them who may be struggling to find that balance of like balancing being a school psych and balancing their own personal mental health, just managing stress, anxiety, whatever it may be. So if anybody wants to, jump in and share, that would be good too.
I think finding, Maya said it really well with like finding a way to express yourself that is not structured, because this career is very much driven by guidelines and due dates and all of these things. And while that's very great, you know when things need to happen, that also creates a lot of stress sometimes because you're always under pressure. And you have to do things a certain way in this field. Like you can't just randomly choose one day to say like, oh, I'm going to give this test this way because I feel like it. Like, no, that's not how you do it. It has to be by the book. And I know for me, like I love structure, but sometimes it does become where I'm just like, I just feel like I'm in a box. And so I think the biggest thing would be to find something, where you can just do whatever. There are no rules.
Right.
Whatever that means, whether it is some sort of form of art. So I'm the same way. Dance is next to the gym. Dance is like one of my biggest outlets because
it sure is.
Yes, I'm learning some choreography, but ultimately, if I don't want to do the choreography and I want to just dance it out to the song the whole time, a teacher's not going to tell me I can't do that. Like whatever, they're going to let me do what I want. And it just feels freeing. And so I think I would suggest finding, if you don't currently have some sort of, it doesn't really have to be a passion either. It could just be, I'm just going to try a bunch of different things and see what works. Because you might not know right now. And so you're still searching for whatever that, outside hobby is going to be for you. And I think once you find that, then that's when it comes down to prioritize having that time in your schedule for that.
Yeah.
So good.
Yeah. Everything that Dr. Jones just said, and even just a little bit deeper into looking at what you're doing as a school psychologist and seeing if you need to be doing all of that. Like some things that maybe you previously agreed and said yes to, do you still need to be doing it? And is it still driving? Are you still passionate about it? Because I think that's the thing we talked about, learning to say no. And even learning to say no when you previously said yes and have been doing it for a while. So practically making a list of all the things that you're involved in. You're doing this research, you're helping with this club on campus, and you're helping with this and that. And is it still helping and aiding in your mental health and your passion and being okay with that. And some people may have something to say, well, you did it last year. Well, I'm not doing it this year. I'm not doing it. Okay. And like being able to say that for you and stand up for and advocate for yourself is part of that self-care.
Yeah, that's both so really good. I actually want to add to that is also just showing ourselves some grace. I feel like we're really hard on ourselves. I feel like it's Black School. Tell me about it. Like we're all in our heads. It's like just showing ourselves some grace. Like, okay, yes, we may not have went to the gym or made that healthy meal, but like take time to relax. And I know that could be very hard for many of us, including myself. Like today, I was like, I'm just going to relax. Like it has been a crazy week and it's okay. Like being okay with relaxing. And there was something else when you guys were talking, something else had popped in my head. Oh, quarterly check-ins. That's what I was going to say. Like if you're struggling, I highly encourage you to do like quarterly check-ins, just like students get quarterly report cards. I used to do, that would be my quarterly check-in with myself where I am evaluating how am I feeling as a person, not as a school psych, but how am I feeling? Am I taking care of myself? What am I eating? What does my workout life look like? Am I spending time with my family and friends? Am I taking care of myself? What does that look like? And then if I'm not, I kind of make a plan for like the second quarter, third quarter, whatsoever, and just monitoring like what that looks like. Because if not, we're going to forget about ourselves because we're trying to help and take care of everyone else. So just highly encourage you all to just, check in with yourself. How is your mood? How do you feel today? Just asking yourself those questions. So that's what I wanted to also add. Aline, you want to have anything to
progress monitoring?
Right, progress.
Love it.
Right. You guys actually covered everything. And I think for me, I feel like in grad school, I wish I would have had more of a grad school life balance, right? Because I was all about completing assignments, like, oh, I'm top tier, I'm doing this, I'm, getting all these grades and all these, amazing comments from my professor, but I had such a boring life, right? It literally took me moving from Florida to Texas to actually be intentional of trying things. So like, I will be outside and trying a new restaurant or, nature walking, doing something because it makes me more of a relatable person outside of the doctor, right? Like it makes me like more diverse in my experiences. Like it makes me more of a fun person because we be having some school psychs, they're like all about this, they're very rigid, but who are you when you clock out? You feel me? So it's like, we want to be able to be flexible and be, overall happy, So.
And I almost think people somewhat respect you more when they know that you're an actual human being outside of your job. Because like I said, I go to dance classes and I take like the Hills classes that you probably see all over social media. Right. And I don't usually in classes, I introduce myself as Kamio. And then sometimes I get close to some of these people in the class and they follow me on Instagram and my name says Dr. Kamio Jones. They'll be like, oh my God, you're a doctor? And I'm like, yeah. And they're like, that is so cool. Like you come here and you're a whole different person. I'm like, that it's my outlet. That's just like,
Right. That's so true. So true. So we do have a question in the chat. I'll go ahead and read that one. This one is actually a really good one. So it says, because you all have experienced lack of diversity in this field and have been made feel uncomfortable about white colleagues, have you felt imposter syndromes, and how have you gave yourself reassurance? Thank you, Timothy, for that great question.
100%.
I got it tatted on my forehead for a while.
And sadly, it's not always just from colleagues. Like majority of it started for me with colleagues, but I started seeing it from like just certain family members, and I don't think they mean to do it. I think they think it's funny to just joke and say like, if maybe I correct somebody, they're like, oh, you're doing that because you're a doctor. Like, little comments like that where it's like, well, I'm not trying to rub it in anyone's face. So then it makes me like say like, well, maybe I'm not supposed to be a doctor, or maybe I went for more than I was supposed to go for, or things like that. But I think for me, and I was going to say this too on what we were just talking about, is to surround yourself with people who build you up, because a
Yes.
lot of my friend group who I've had for years, they brag about me more than I brag about myself. And it helps me be able to come out of that mindset of like, no, you didn't deserve this, or you know, you're not supposed to be in this role. But then when I even get the slightest bit of that feeling, those friends that I have will pump me back up. And it's an instant, like, they're so happy to tell people that don't know me, like, oh, my friend's a doctor, or she helps kids, or she does this, or, and then it puts me back in that space of like, okay, no, maybe I do deserve this. Like, people are proud to, you know, say like, I know her, or I'm friends with her, or I work with her. So I think for me, it's been surrounding myself with people who are actually proud, because that could be scary. Sometimes we surround ourselves with people who we may think support us, and they're actually a little bit envious of what we're doing. So I think that's like my biggest thing. If I didn't have that good circle that I do have, and I've weeded some people out, obviously, over the years, you know, those people keep me going and keep me feeling confident in what I'm doing.
Yeah.
So good. Aline and I were just talking about that this week, last week. I don't.
Every week, every day. Honestly, mine's the same answer. I've never felt more confident as a Black school psychologist than I have now that I have a very supportive group of not only Black school psychologists, but also just Black individuals in general that are like really about mental health and care about mental health, and will love to hear what I have to say. I think that was part of it. Not feeling like I had a voice initially in my grad school, and again, being the only Black school psychologist student really, really took a toll on me, to where I was like, I'm just going to be quiet. I'm going to sit here because I don't want to come off as the angry Black woman. I also just am unsure what I'm going to say. And it wasn't until that last semester, where somebody said to me that you need to think about what is being missed by you not saying what you want to say, and learn these learning opportunities from other people. And it's like, sometimes you just gotta say it, but not for you, but for someone else in the room that won't have that. And I feel like since I've started to do that, and really just trust for me, I trust that God will give me the words that I need to say in any room. So I will often, sometimes before I have a presentation, before where usually, you feel in that imposter syndrome the most when you're in front of a room, I will say, for me, it's God give me the words that need to be said to this group, and then go into it that way. But whatever the case may be for you, is just trusting in that your knowledge and your ability, it needs to be heard. And you come with a unique perspective as the only or one of few Black school psychologists in the room, and flipping it that way versus, yes, I'm the only one, and they're the majority, so they want their opinions heard. No, you have something to share that they can learn from. And so I've taken that, and it's been really empowering for me.
It's really good. Really good. I will say too, with imposter syndrome, I had to understand that imposter syndrome is a lie, right? And it's coming to that of having the circle, which is amazing, but I'm big on like affirmation and the spiritual piece of Bible verses that are facts, right? And so I literally, oh, you're not good enough to be in this field. This degree and these hours I had to do, it says something different, right? So it's literally looking at what's factual and allowing it to trump over the lie that's being said, or even opinions of other people, because people will say things to try to hinder you because you're where they wish they could be, right? And so it's just understanding, like, I think the common theme for me tonight is just the motive, right? What's the motive behind everything? So, and going from there.
Yes. And it's just like, for any Black school psychs or grad students that are feeling they're not enough, like, you are enough, and like, you are meant to be in these spaces where sometimes it may feel like we're not supposed to be here, but we're supposed to be here. And I love, Aline, what you said, these positive affirmations. I actually started doing that in my, I used to have a folder that I would carry around and I would put like scriptures in the inside. But now like I have a board in my office with just like positive affirmations. Like I'm supposed to be here. I'm going to show up and give my best every day, even if I'm tired, like just reminding myself, because there are going to be times where it's like, oh, here we go again, or having to deal with whatever it is at work or those challenging students. But just knowing like this is where I'm supposed to be. Like we all have a plan and purpose for wherever we are, whether that's in the schools, in higher ed, private practice, whatsoever. So we have to really pour into ourselves and believe it and walk in that confidence of who we are as Black school psychologists. So that's my spill for tonight.
I just want to add that sometimes we have people rooting for us that we don't even know, people that are inspired by us that we don't even know. So it's like us pushing through. I know sometimes the journey is so hard. Like we can all talk about stories, being graduates, right?
Oh my God.
Yes, but understanding like so many people are like, man, if she could do it or he could do it or they could do it, literally I can do it too. So it's understanding, man, people may be silent, but people watch, right? And so keep reminding that people are rooting for you more than you think.
Yes,
for sure.
Yes.
All right. Well, we're going to go to the last
question. Yeah. Is that you, Aline? You want to take that one?
I think so. I'll take it.
Okay.
All right. How are you feeling though? Like we're about to end, but how are y'all feeling?
I know.
How are we feeling? People in the chat.
I feel like, I'm feeling good over here. I feel like I needed this. Just like Tiara said, this week has been so long, hard, just all of the things. And so to end the week like this, I'm like, okay, I can go into the weekend, feel good, and start off next week on a better, slate.
Yeah, this was actually perfect time for me because I start a new contract on Monday. So I was in school psychology. So this was very empowering for me to get back in there.
Good.
Nice.
All right. So last question.
I don't know if there's a question in there, but
okay.
That's good too.
You want to read that? We might just have to just go with this question, I guess.
I mean, if y'all got a few extra minutes, we can keep going for a little bit if that's okay.
Yeah.
The people want to know.
So you want me to read it, Aline?
Yeah.
Okay. Oh, you're good. So it says we have a first year school psych, and she finds that her family and friends minimize the profession, often calling me a school counselor. You want to add social worker? I want to add more to that question. But anyway, no disrespect to school counselors, but this degree is unmatched. Absolutely. And I can count. I don't even have fingers and toes for how many I feel like I already know what I'm going to say. For how many times we as school psychs have been called, no shade to these people that I'm about to say, but school counselors, school social workers, paraeducators, behavior aides, whatever it may be. But it's like, put some respect on us, y'all. Like,
I honestly think I've actually talked about this in one of my classes the other day. And again, no disrespect, because a school counselor is actually the reason I'm even knew about school psychology. So that's my school counselor in high school. But we have to, I think it's lack of education. Like I remember Googling, what's the difference between a counselor and a psychologist? Like, I'm like, it's truly ignorance in my opinion. Like people don't know what a school psychologist is. They don't know that every school was required to have one. You only know if, again, we're there to evaluate when something's wrong. So it's like, and if you didn't have something wrong, you don't know, called for us to evaluate something wrong. You don't know. So I try to give people grace with that one. But I also feel like it's my job then to educate. And I'm like, this is what a school counselor does. I'm a school psychologist. They're very different. You may hear them used interchangeably, but there is a difference. And then I proceed to explain, and depending on how much time we got, what all the things that a school psychologist does. But just educating, and I try not to, but it is hard. It is hard.
I was gonna say the same thing. Like obviously all of those roles are important in the education field in general, and we all do hard work, but I think, yeah, it does bother me, but I think I started turning it around too and saying like, they just don't know.
Yeah.
I
Yep.
can't be mad at someone who doesn't know something. And I
Mhm.
know even from my mom, like when I first came into grad school for it, she said the same thing. She's like,
Yeah.
"Oh, so you're going to be a school counselor?" And I was like, "No, I'm going to be a
Yeah.
school
And that's
psychologist."
the one they know, because that's what everyone
Yep.
had to see their school counselor.
Mhm.
Yeah. And once I explained the difference to her, now she gets it.
Mhm.
But I think that's all it takes is you just kind of taking it's almost like separating your own ego from the
Yeah.
situation for a second and being like, okay, I cannot be mad because most likely this person has no idea. Let me use
Mhm.
this as a moment to, educate them on it. And I've even had people who like I know are in some sort of like they're majoring in psychology right now or something in undergrad, and they've reached out to me and they're like, "Hey,
Mhm.
I want to do what you're doing, but like I don't know what kind of program to look for." And I'm like, I'm glad you're asking
Mhm.
because I would hate for them to go into a different program thinking it's the same thing
Mhm.
Right.
and then realizing that it's not. So
Mhm.
I truly just think most people just don't realize it.
Yeah, that's so true.
Really
So
good.
true. All right, Aileen, you want to go for the last question?
Yes. How do you prioritize self-care as a Black school psychologist, considering the unique challenges and responsibilities that come with the role?
So I feel like we've talked a lot about this, but
Mhm.
continuing to empower yourself in spaces that are systemically meant to put Black and Brown students, educators, school psychologists down. And so finding your role within that, what that looks like for you, within your mental means. Because again, we go back to wanting to help everyone and
Mhm.
can't not being able to do that. And so it really does take that self-awareness and that self-reflection, a lot of that, and kind of deciding what role you want to be. For me personally, where I found myself like, since fitness and being an athlete is such a big part of my identity, I found if I can't find a way to bring that into my role as a school psychologist, I don't want it. And I was like very upset with that. I found myself, people would say like, I can't even imagine before I started doing, including fitness as part of mental and muscle, I was was a school psychologist that they said I look completely different. They couldn't have even imagined me in front of a crowd and leading a workout to 300 people, like, because I was very closed off. And so even just bringing how I am in that creative role into my role as a school psych is part of self-care, preserving who I am within myself, and not feeling like you have to separate who you are and, code switch and all, within reason, but not making sure making sure that you can bring those aspects of yourself and who you are into your role as a school psychologist with Black school psychologist is very important.
Mhm.
And I would say, honestly, it's telling myself that I can't fight every battle.
Mhm.
I know, obviously, we've talked a lot about, I feel like the janitor's about to come in here.
I saw the shit.
Yeah.
It's like that's a wrap.
I
Yeah,
feel like
so-
we talked a lot about like being able to be that face for other students or for people who can't be who can't be in those spaces like we can. But that could become very tiring for yourself to always have to be that person. So
Mhm.
I know for me there's sometimes I've been in meetings where things will happen and I want to say something, but I do pick and choose my battles. There was a point where I was completely silent and I wouldn't say anything ever. Um, and then I kind of jumped into the like, I'm always going to say something. But then I realized like I can't do that though. Like it's not always worth it. And honestly, exactly what you said, that motive. Like, what is my motive
Mhm.
behind saying something? Because if am I saying it almost to like get back at this person, or am I saying it because I'm trying to like educate them or
Yeah.
help a child, whatever it is. So now that's kind of me prioritizing it as like yes, I am that face, but is this really worth me like going that extra mile to fight the battle, or is it fine? Like it's gonna just
Mhm.
blow over, and you'll figure it out. You may not fight the battle then, and then it might come up again, and you're like, okay, no, this is the time that I need to say something. I think really just trying to figure out when you need to kind of use that, like, I am a Black person in this environment, and when you kind of just need to be like, it's not that big of a deal. I may be making it bigger than it is.
Right. Yeah, and I just want to add to that too. Those were both you, Maya, and Kamio said some really good things. And when I think about self-care, it kind of makes me think back too about prioritizing self-care. Maybe think about this presentation that I used to do at the NAS conference for like early career school psychs, where the end of the presentation was talking about like self-care. And a lot of times we think about like things we can do outside of work. And I had to start shifting that mindset of like, okay, yes, we can do all these things outside of work, but like, how are we actually taking care of ourselves when we're at work? Because there are moments where we're going to need to take a break, pause, turn off the lights, go for a walk. Like we have to start finding things that we can incorporate during the daytime at work hours, as opposed to wait until 5 o'clock or the weekend. By then you're already drained.
Yeah.
And some of the things that I even started doing for my own self, as I'm like preaching to everybody else, like I would close my laptop. Me and my school counselor used to do walks downtown Baltimore, which was really nice when it was nice out. Maya knows what I'm talking about because we used to live in the same neighborhood. Just going out for a walk, or literally just closing the door. Everyone's knocking on our doors all the time, but just closing the door for once. I used to put a do not disturb. And hopefully no one from my old school is listening, but I would put a do not disturb sign on my door. But literally, I just needed a time for myself where I wasn't constantly talking to teachers and students or being in meetings. Sometimes we got to do that to take care of ourselves when we're physically at our schools. Making sure to eat, drink water, coffee, tea, whatever you need. Like that is also important part of like self-care as well. So yeah, so overall, it's like think of things that you can do while you're at work, but also while you're off work hours as well. So yes.
Oh, this was so good.
I know. I'm like, dang, we gotta end.
Oh, seriously, I think I needed this more than I thought, but this was awesome. Like the wisdom poured out by you all tonight was amazing.
Yes, and we have a lot of viewers that are watching tonight, especially it's like New Year, New Me. Everyone came on to like, okay, how I'm going to take better care, live my best life in 2024. But yeah, we got to wrap up. It is Friday night, y'all. Everyone else, like some of us got to get home. Kamio, I was cracking up at that custodian. Like she just didn't even knock, say her name. She just came in. So yes.
She does it sometimes. If I am here a little bit late for whatever reason, she'll come in and she won't interrupt me, which is nice. I'm glad she doesn't say like, "Oh, I'm sorry." She just comes in, gets a crack, and leaves. And I'm like, cool.
Look, I gotta do my job just like you gotta do yours.
Oh goodness, but yes, but thank you all. Thank you, Maya. Thank you, Dr. Kamio, for being our guest tonight. This conversation is just, we might have to do a part 2 or something, because like this was just like much needed. Thank you to all of our viewers for tuning in for tonight's YouTube Live. Before we close, for Maya and Kamio, if you can just share how our followers can stay in touch with you after our live.
Yeah.
I'm like,
my
who's
name
going
is
first?
Maya Evans. I need to update my LinkedIn, so you can find me there, but it's not the most updated. But you could also find me on Instagram at Mental and Muscle. That is as in mental health, AND, spell it out, muscle.
And then for me, I don't have a separate work page, but I'm starting to get out of the habit, like I said earlier, of trying to hide my actual identity from people, because there was a point where I was like, oh my God, I don't want people knowing I like do these dance classes. But I've gotten to the point of like, it's fine. It's it's part of me. But my Instagram handle is @_ Killacam. It's KILLUH and then KAM.
I was the same
And
way.
you might have to message me if you add me, because I will probably not know who you are and I might not approve it. So if you just DM me first and say like you saw me on the live or something, then at least I'll know where you came from.
Yes, and definitely follow these two. They often inspire me to go work out. When I see them posting that they have worked out, I'm like, yep, let me change my clothes. Let me go to the gym. Let me go work out.
We used to work out a little together, girl.
I know. I was literally just telling someone earlier how we used to do the virtual classes during COVID.
When I first started, she was there.
Killing me, y'all. So but no, those workouts were so needed, so needed, which kind of leads to what we're about to talk about next. Aline, do you want to talk about it or you want me to talk about it?
Listen, because I'm going to be in this workout session because summertime is around the corner. I need you to get me together. You feel me?
I got 45 minutes to do that, right?
That's a good enough amount of time.
Guys, at the Black School Psych Summit happening April 25th to 26th, 2024 in Atlanta, Georgia.
Woo!
Yeah.
Maya Evans, y'all, she not coming as a school psychologist. She coming as the fitness instructor. So like, Maya, can you tell us like what should we bring to the session?
Yes. So this is the closeout session. We're going to get all that mental goodness going to all these different school psychology sessions. And then the final session of the day on Friday will be our workout together. So we'll be coming together to really just bring it to a close. We've been sitting down for a lot. I want to get you guys moving. I have been advised not to make it my most advanced workout. So it will be for all fitness levels. We will have different modifications. So please, please, please do not be intimidated by what they're saying about me right now. So please invite everyone to come. It's going to be a great time. All of the exercises are to the beat of music. So I wanted to kind of make it really fun. It's Friday night. Get you ready to go whatever you're about to do after the conference. Take that 45 minutes for our exercise together. So please bring, outside of your conference clothes, please bring a workout clothes to the conference on Friday, especially if you're not staying in the hotel. Just bring it in your bag. You don't need to be, you don't have to go all out. Just bring something you're cool to sweat in, some sneakers. I train barefoot. You don't even got to bring sneakers. Just as long as you have something you're okay with sweating in. And we're going to get right into that workout.
Yes, I cannot wait. And I believe we also have a self-care breakout session on Friday as well. Definitely check that out. And then Kamio is also presenting. Kamio, you want to promote your breakout session too?
So I don't remember what day I'm on exactly. I don't remember. But I will be doing a breakout session during the Black School Psych Summit. And the title is I Know I Can Be What I Want to Be, like the song. I know I can be what I want to be. And it's about school psychologists as allies for the LGBTQIA2S+ BIPOC youth. So, I'm going to go into detail about just some of these new laws that are out there and how they affect us in the schools and what we can and can't do, and just how to overall support these students because, obviously people of that community are dealing with enough, but to put on top of that they are also of color is only adding an extra element to it. So I just want to, brainstorm ideas with you guys as well. I'll come with a few, but I think it'll be really nice just to hear what people from just around the United States or wherever you're coming from, what you've been doing in your schools as well to kind of, make those kids feel welcomed and, supported.
So good. Yes, cannot wait. Aline, want to talk about these headshots that everybody needs to sign up for?
What we finna do at this Black School? I'm like, I said what we finna do, and I mean, I'm telling you, please sign up.
We are in a safe space now, y'all.
This is me, y'all. Slots are quickly filling up, y'all. This is going to be amazing. Headshots are $20, very affordable. We want to elevate, in our professional networking and headshots for LinkedIn, social media, Black excellence, right? So headshots are $20. Go ahead and register on our website at www.bspninc.com, and it'll lead you to registration to sign up for your spot. So secure your spot by April 12th.
Yes, and slots are quickly filling up. So don't be like, dang, I wish I would have signed up to get my headshot. Actually, this is a reminder for myself because I also want to get some updated headshots. And I put the link in the chat for those that want to register for the conference. That link also has where you can register for headshots as well. And then lastly, two more things. So for February, we're going to be switching it up. We are going, the whole BSPN, board will be live from New Orleans for our National School Psych Association conference on February. The conference is February 13th through the 17th. So I'm really excited. If those were watching last year, we were out interviewing people outside of the exhibit hall. So who knows where we'll pop up in New Orleans next month. Super excited about that. And if you aren't already subscribed to our YouTube channel, please subscribe. And if you aren't already following us on all social media at the Black SPS, and bookmark our website, www.bspninc.com. And feel free to stay connected with us. And again, thank you all for tuning in tonight. I hope everyone has an amazing weekend. Get some rest, prioritize yourself, as we've been talking about self-care this entire hour and 15 minutes. So Maya and Dr. Kamio, we appreciate you guys so much for being our guest speakers. And you guys take care.
Thank you. Bye. Next time I'm on here, I'm a doctor. I'm going to come back and find you.
Doctor, okay.
Bye, y'all. Have a good night.
Bye.
Bye.
Perfect.